Section 14 of Hero and Leander. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Martin Geeson. Hero and Leander by Christopher Marlowe and George Chapman. Section 14. The Sixth Sestiad by George Chapman. Part 1. The Argument. Leucote flies to all the winds, and from the fates their outrage blinds, that Hero and her love may meet. Leander, with love's complete fleet manned in himself, puts forth to seize, when straight the ruthless Destinies with Ate stirs the winds to war upon the Hellespont. Their jar drowns poor Leander. Hero's eyes, wet witnesses of his surprise, her torch blown out, grief casts her down upon her love, and both doth drown. In whose just ruth the god of seas transforms them to the Acanthides. No longer could the day nor Destinies delay the night, who now did frowning rise into her throne, and at her humorous breasts visions and dreams lay sucking. All men's rests fell like the mists of death upon their eyes. Days' too long darts so killed their faculties. The winds yet, like the flowers, to cease began. For bright Leucote, Venus' whitest swan, that held sweet Hero dear, spread her fair wings, like to a field of snow, and message brings from Venus to the Fates, to entreat them lay their charge upon the winds, their rage to stay, that the stern battle of the seas might cease, and guard Leander to his love in peace. The Fates consent. Ay me, dissembling Fates! They showed their favours, to conceal their hates, and draw Leander on, lest seas too high should stay his too obsequious destiny. Who like a fleering slavish parasite, in warping profit or a traitorous sleight, hoops round his rotten body with devotes, and pricks his descant face full of false notes, praising with open throat, and oaths as foul as his false heart, the beauty of an owl, kissing his skipping hand with charmed skips, that cannot leave, but leaps upon his lips like a cock sparrow, or a shameless queen sharp at a red-lipped youth, and naught doth mean of all his antic shows, but doth repair more tender fawns, and takes a scattered hair from his tame subject's shoulder, whips and calls for everything he lacks, creeps against the walls with backward humbleness, to give needless way. Thus his false fate did with Leander play. First to black Eurus flies the white Leucote, born mongst the negroes in the Levant sea, on whose curled heads the glowing sun doth rise, and shows the sovereign will of Destinies to have him cease his blasts, and down he lies. Next to the fenny Notus course she holds, and found him leaning with his arms in folds upon a rock, his white hair full of showers, and him she chargeth by the fatal powers to hold in his wet cheeks his cloudy voice. To Zephyr then, that doth in flowers rejoice, to snake-foot Boreas next she did remove, and found him tossing of his ravish'd love, to heat his frosty bosom hid in snow, who with Leucote's sight did cease to blow. Thus all were still to Hero's heart's desire, who with all speed did consecrate a fire of flaming gums, and comfortable spice to light her torch, which in such curious price she held, being object to Leander's sight, that nought but fires perfumed must give it light. She loved it so, she grieved to see it burn, since it would waste, and soon to ashes turn. Yet if it burned not, 'twere not worth her eyes, what made it nothing, gave it all the prize. Sweet torch, true glass of our society, what man does good, but he consumes thereby? But thou wert loved for good, held high, given show, poor virtue loathed for good, obscured, held low. Do good, be pined; be deedless good, disgraced. Unless we feed on men, we let them fast. Yet Hero with these thoughts her torch did spend. When bees make wax, nature doth not intend it should be made a torch, but we that know the proper virtue of it make it so, and when 'tis made we light it. Nor did nature propose one life to maids, but each such creature makes by her soul the best of her true state, which without love is rude, disconsolate, and wants love's fire to make it mild and bright, till when maids are but torches wanting light. Thus 'gainst our grief, not cause of grief, we fight. The right of nought is gleaned but the delight. Up went she, but to tell how she descended, would God she were not dead, or my verse ended. She was the rule of wishes, sum and end, for all the parts that did on love depend, yet cast the torch his brightness further forth. But what shines nearest best holds truest worth. Leander did not through such tempest swim to kiss the torch, although it lighted him, but all his powers in her desires awaked. Her love and virtues clothed him richly naked. Men kiss but fire that only shows pursue, her torch and Hero figure show and virtue. Now at opposed Abydos nought was heard but bleating flocks, and many a bellowing herd, slain for the nuptials, cracks of falling woods, blows of broad axes, pourings out of floods. The guilty Hellespont was mixed and stained with bloody torrent that the shambles reigned. Not arguments of feast, but shows that bled, foretelling that red night that followed. More blood was spilt, more honours were addressed than could have graced any happy feast. Rich banquets, triumphs, every pomp employs his sumptuous hand, no miser's nuptial joys. Air felt continual thunder with the noise made in the general marriage violence, and no man knew the cause of this expense but the two hapless lords, Leander's sire and poor Leander, poorest where the fire of credulous love made him most rich surmised. As short was he of that himself so prized, as is an empty gallant full of form, that thinks each look an act, each drop a storm, that falls from his brave breathings, most brought up in our metropolis, and hath his cup brought after him to feasts, and much palm bears for his rare judgment in the attire he wears, hath seen the hot Low Countries, not their heat, observe their rampires and their buildings yet, and for your sweet discourse with mouths, is heard giving instructions with his very beard, hath gone with an ambassador, and been a great man's mate in travelling, even to Rheims, and then puts all his worth in such a face as he saw brave men make, and strives for grace to get his news forth, as when you descry a ship with all her sail contends to fly out of the narrow Thames with winds unapt, now crosseth here, then there, then his way rapt, and then hath one point reached, then alters all, and to another crooked reach doth fall of half a bird bolt's shoot, keeping more coil than if she danced upon the ocean's toil. So serious is his trifling company, in all his swelling ship of vacantry, and so short of himself in his high thought was our Leander in his fortunes brought, and in his fort of love that he thought won. But otherwise he scorns comparison. O sweet Leander, thy large worth I hide in a short grave. Ill-favour'd storms must chide thy sacred favour. I in floods of ink must drown thy graces, which white papers drink, even as thy beauties did the foul black seas. I must describe the hell of thy decease, that heaven did merit. Yet I needs must see our painted fools and cock-horse peasantry still usurp with long lives, loves, and lust the seats of virtue, cutting short as dust her dear bought issue. Ill to worse converts, and tramples in the blood of all deserts. End of Section 14. Recording by Martin Geeson in Hazelmere, Surrey.